Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to today's PATA Destination Insight series featuring Malaysia, presented by PATA and BBC News. And today's session is actually sponsored by our good friends at Mastercard. Now, before we get to today's session, allow me to first introduce myself. My name is Paul Brancan. I am the Chief of Staff at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and I will be your host for today's session. Now, before I jump into the webinar, I do have a couple of quick notes on Zoom for those of you who are watching on Zoom. Here you can, as you can see on our screen, there's a chat function and a Q&A function. So please do submit any questions for our panelists using the Q&A function as noted on your screen. If you have any thoughts about today's session, you can drop it in the chat. If you want to say hello, where you're from, feel free to drop it in the chat as well. For those of you who are watching on our Facebook live stream, you can also drop a question there. My colleagues will be monitoring Facebook, so they will then transfer the question here, and I will pass that along to the moderator as well. So that is all of our housekeeping notes for today. And with that, let's jump right into today's session. We have a great lineup of speakers today. Before we get to that, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to open today's session, PATA CEO, Ms. Liz Ortiguera. Liz, over to you.
Honorable Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Dato Sri Nancy Shukri, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome. Thank you for joining the PATA Destination Insight series, where today we'll be focusing on Malaysia, truly Asia. As the CEO of PATA, I wanted to first take this opportunity to thank our good friends and partners at BBC Global News Limited, as well as the Tourism Malaysia, for partnering with us in organizing today's webinar. In addition, thank you to our partner Mastercard for sponsoring today's session. As the industry faces one of the greatest challenges it has ever seen, now more than ever, we need to work together to build a more resilient, responsible, sustainable, and stronger travel and tourism industry. Today's webinar is just a small example of how we as an industry should be working together so that we can look to rebuild travel and tourism. The Destination Insight series aims to provide an in-depth look at various destinations around the Asia-Pacific region and examine how they are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and preparing towards recovery. Today's episode highlights the initiatives of Malaysia, a destination where travelers can experience remarkable treasures and hidden gems from its beautiful island and beaches to its adventure with nature. Each state offers a unique Malaysian experience for all. Travelers can explore outdoor and nature activities, cultural experiences, hunting and fishing activities, coastal sailings, and cruises in Malaysia. And I look forward to hearing more about the country's reopening plans as it looks towards recovery. In the meantime, we all must continue to do our part and protect the health of our families, employees, and the public. PATA will continue to stand by our members and industry colleagues during times such as these, and I hope that you will stand with us. Once again, thank you to BBC, Tourism Malaysia, and Mastercard for helping us organize today's webinar. Thank you to all of our speakers, and lastly, thank you to all for joining us here today. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Liz, for those kind remarks. Now, we've come to our first session of today's webinar. We'll be having a fireside chat with BBC. So, to interview the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture in Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the senior journalist at BBC Global News, Mr. Nick Marsh. Nick, over to you.
Hello, Paul. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, especially at this very exciting time for tourism in the region. I'm very happy to say that we are joined now by the Honourable Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Dato Sri Haja Nancy Shukri. Thank you very much for joining us.
Having us here from Malaysia with you all.
Now, we're all very excited in this region. Tourism does seem to be on its way back. Tell us about the current travel situation in Malaysia right now.
Well, Nick, thank you. We are very excited, of course. The government just announced the reopening of the international borders and transition to the endemic phase effective 1st April 2022. Actually, the word endemic had been waited by the people for a long time. They are waiting for this moment. Well, like other countries, vaccinated travelers get to enjoy quarantine-free travel as well. And for this year, we are coming up with a very conservative target figures that is 2 million tourist arrivals with 8.6 billion ringgit of tourism receipts. But anyway, having said that, Nick, that is just what we can foresee for now. But we are still monitoring. Maybe within 3 months, we want to see how many will be coming, because there are some countries within ASEAN as well, like China, they're still closed. So we expect China, if they are open, we'll be getting influx of tourist arrivals from China. So at the moment, as at the first week of April, there were about 252,730 tourists coming in from all over the countries. So of course, we do have our target for 2025. We estimate arrivals at 16 to 22 million people or tourists, with 47 to 77 billion ringgit in tourist receipts. So in that case, MOTAC is also working closely with the tourism associations, private sectors, and also NGOs to promote safe travel practices at tourism-related services and facilities such as hotels, theme parks, convention centers, local and international airports, and also shopping malls. This is also to ensure that the hygiene, cleanliness, and health safety conditions of tourism attractions, premises, and also workplaces are met at a very satisfactory level at all times. And well, maybe I can give example. The Travel Safe Alliance, or TSA, certification programs, a private sector-led initiative recognized by MOTAC. So this is a program that we work together with our industry players, like the hotel especially. We want to make sure that all these premises are kept safe and clean. Well, apart from that, Nick, these programs are also to boost travelers' confidence and ensure them a safe experience. When they come to Malaysia, they come here safely. That's why we call it Selamat Datang. So we want people to come here we want people to come here safe, and then apart from that, we also want to have this label of travel safe, label for travel and tour arrangements, clean and safe Malaysia for hotels, and safe BE, or the safe for business events as well, and convention venues. So for the moment, that's it, Nick.
So it's a cautious but so far fairly promising start, right? Yeah, since that big landmark 1st of April.
No,
sort of
although we're excited,
Yeah.
although we're excited about it, but we are still very cautious. And I see even the tourists are also coming in cautiously. I think well, gradually things might change. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you on that. I mean, what do you think some of the biggest challenges that you've tried to foresee in the medium and longer term after a really difficult couple of years, of course?
Yeah, definitely there are challenges for us, among them like maybe possible variants of COVID-19 that may emerge in the future. But I mean, we have been hearing of all sorts of variants. So that's why we foresee that, this is one of our challenges. And of course, there are also still restrictions and SOPs that have to remain in place. And then the connectivity as well, especially air connectivity, is a challenge to us since most airlines still reduce their frequencies due to COVID-19. And we hope to see changes coming soon, And of course, apart from the challenges, we also have the opportunities, which we are going to use as something that will bring more business for us. we expect surge in international arrivals after reopening. And then because what we do in MOTAC, we do our own survey in our own way, trying to find out, how are the hotels doing, homestays. Well, a lot of them are telling us they have a long list of booking till the end of the year even. So that sounds good. And of course, that digitalization contributes to the situation, like, it allows the industry to reach a larger audience. So of course, the presence of social media as well as a platform to promote Malaysia's readiness and also tourism products. And Malaysia has a strong domestic market that continues to drive recovery, because we cannot just depend on the foreign or international tourists. So we are still harping on our own strong domestic market. And Malaysia's uniqueness, among them like diversity in its nature and people, this is something that we are very proud of, and allows to promote ecotourism and cultural tourism, actually thanks to the COVID-19 time, Nick, because that is a time when we discover ecotourism more in our country, like hidden gems in even in the rural areas, the villages. So Malaysia's products are suitable for the new trend. Moving away from mass tourism and getting closer to Mother Nature, we did our own survey and find out, and see what is the trend of the tourists in the country. So we can see that a lot of people, they prefer to travel not in big groups, they prefer to travel with families or just among few friends. The reopening of the borders is indeed a huge relief actually for the industry. The influx of foreign tourists will allow the tourism ecosystem in Malaysia to revitalize and re-energize. So for the past 2 years, the tourism industry here has been struggling like any other countries as well. But we have been monitoring the rest of the countries as well. So some of the businesses have ceased to operate or shut down. Well, at least, especially the first part of the few months when COVID started, people are also starting to make a lot of noise, people losing their jobs, and people talking about closing their businesses. So we have to monitor. Some of the operators have closed down their so-called some hotels. They say, but I see some of them, they are just repurposing. And tour guides and taxi drivers also lost their jobs, and hotels retrenched their staff to reduce costs and liabilities in order to keep the business afloat. Well, economically, the economic activities in localities that depend very much on tourism, such as Langkawi. I'm sure you heard a lot about Langkawi. Radang is in Terengganu, Tioman and Mabul were badly affected. These are very popular destinations. They're very badly affected with very minimal income to the tourism businesses. So these are among our challenges, our opportunities that we want to take the opportunity for us to reboot our tourism industry.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of different stakeholders there. The tourism industry encompasses so many people, so many livelihoods. Like you said, a lot of people have really been struggling over the past couple of years and had a very tough time. As a government, of course, you have to make difficult decisions. I'm sure there's going to be some friction. Not everyone's going to be happy with every decision that you make. How do you keep all of these stakeholders on board, and how are you looking to sort of keep everyone together as borders slowly reopen now?
Well, of course, initially, of course, this is something that something new to almost everyone in the world. So we had a hard time. Of course, during that time, we start to making plans on how we're going to do and how we're going to approach, how we are going to really rebuild the confidence of the people. So we intensify our PPP via strategic collaborations with associations, airlines, product owners. Example, we collaborate between Tourism Malaysia and also Visa Malaysia on the 31st of March and launched the Home Away from Home campaign. This is to encourage people to travel again. So MOTAC has allocated a total of 61 million ringgit in the year 2020. and year 2021 for the distribution of financial assistance to more than 20,000 tour operators licensed or registered with MOTAC, like travel agencies, agents of MM2H, homestay operators, tour guides, operators of spas, and also foot massage. But for 2022, the government has allocated 260 million ringgit to MOTAC. But of course, I like to itemize that 85 million ringgit is for special financial assistance to more than 20,000 tourism operators licensed or registered under MOTAC for 3 months. And then another 30 million ringgit allocated for matching grants for the repair of budget hotels as well as homestay owners registered under MOTAC. And then we have another 50 million ringgit in matching grants to companies to organize tourism, arts and culture related programs such as tourism sector matching grant and cultural sector matching grant. There are two separate grants where industry players may apply starting 1st of April. We have just launched it through Tourism Malaysia. And we have another 60 million ringgit in incentive funds for promotional activities, including domestic tourism. And maintenance of tourism infrastructure with an allocation of other 35 million ringgit, including the heritage building in Malaysia, and also another one is more of the heritage sites in another part of Malaysia, in Kedah. Well, hotels and destinations acted as marketing arm for Malaysia through their own network and sales channel, and they have already started doing so with the news of border reopening. International brands have promoted the reopening to its respective loyalty programs with members around the world. On manpower, industry is actively recruiting to ensure service standards and to manage expectations of guests and assisting tourists on SOP requirements as set by the government. Hotel, for example, will be providing a professional testing option to hotel guests as part of its service for convenience, or for the convenience of travelers. Furthermore, Nick, some hotels in Malaysia that are partially or ceased operation temporarily during the Movement Control Order, MCO, as I mentioned earlier, is at the early part of the MCO. They took advantage to refurbish and upgrading their rooms and hotels facilities to give comforts, especially to incoming guests. So special promotional offers to entice tourists to come to Malaysia after the country's border is open. Well, tourism service providers such as airlines, hotels, restaurants, and theme parks have also amped up their marketing and promotions through special offers and attractive packages.
Okay, well, sounds like a lot of changes. I think we might have time just for one or two more questions. I wanted to ask you about something you mentioned earlier, eco-tourism. And I know I've heard you speak in the past a lot about, even in your own constituency, all of the great opportunities there are for more sustainable travel. Does this mean that tourism in Malaysia is not a case of just going back to 2019 and just leaving off where we stopped? Or is tourism going to look very, very different in Malaysia compared to before the pandemic?
Well, I should say that it's slightly different because things have changed because of the pandemic. People have seen, they've been traveling all around the places in their own country. Imagine some people have not been to their own village for a long time. So it does affect the products of what we have in the country. For example, like I was mentioning ecotourism, a lot of them are in the rural areas that have not been explored. This is what we call hidden gems. So of course, this is among the areas that will be bringing some changes to the trend of the travelers, and also to introduce to the people of on the new products, even though they are seen as domestic products for the moment. But this will be the one that we will be also spreading or sharing with the international travelers. And all this, even though they are in the village, surely one day they will be able to accommodate tourists from outside. That's why we're increasing numbers of homestays, numbers of even the villas in the village. Where before this, the village are just like normal village, but now people are already looking forward to receive tourists and stay in their village, and they want to share about their own arts and culture as well, apart from the sites that they are having in their own country and in their villas, in their village, because you see a lot of greens, people going into trekking, snorkeling in new areas. So this will be very, very exciting and very, very interesting for tourists who are just coming into Malaysia for the first time, especially. Even for locals, especially, Nick. They are discovering something new in their own country.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of people took the opportunity during the pandemic to find out a bit more about what's in their own backyard. And just before we just finish up here, very, very quickly, obviously the cross-border travel between Singapore and Malaysia has resumed very, very recently, between Johor and Singapore. That must have been nice to see. It is, yeah. Because a lot of Malaysians are working in Singapore, and some Singaporeans, their families in Malaysia. Well, that's why we call it just like in Malaysia, we call it Hari Raya. Raya is, something like when you celebrate something, it's the festival that we always celebrate among the Muslim community. So it's like celebrating Hari Raya. We call it when we saw so many of them. It's quite very interesting. And then some of them, they were in tears because after 2 years, then they were able to see their families again, apart from being able to visit their own country, because they heard a lot from people in the country and also from the social media. So this is the first time they're able to them seeing the new Malaysia in the new norm. So it's very interesting. I hope to see you coming over to Malaysia as well, Nick. Absolutely. Well, yeah, probably sooner than you think. I'll just wait for the queues to die down a little bit because there was a lot of people there. Looking forward, yeah. But there was quite a lot of very emotional scenes at the border crossing there. It was really great to see. Minister, thank you so much for speaking to us. Well, thank you as well. Thank you. Welcome for having us with you, and of course to also help us to promote Malaysia through this. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, that was the Honourable Minister there, Nancy Shukri, Tourism, Arts and Culture. Paul, I'm going to hand it back over to you. Nick, can I just say thank you to Paul as well? I didn't get the chance to say hello to Paul. So thank you, both of you.
Well, thank you so much, Honourable Minister, for joining us for this special webinar. It's been a pleasure to hear from you. And thank you very much, Nick. We'll actually see Nick a little bit later in this webinar. So with that, I'll let Nick just take a break. And Honourable Minister, thank you again so much for your time, and take care. And hopefully we'll be able to visit each other soon. Well, see you in Malaysia. Thank you. Hope to come soon. So now, before we move to our next session, we do have a quick video from Tourism Malaysia and the Ministry that we would like to play. So without further ado, my colleague will
Selamat datang. Malaysia Truly Asia is ready to welcome you with our warmest hospitality and cheerful smiles as we greet you on 1st April 2022. Our borders will open up, then we would love to have you come and visit and enjoy the amazing beauty of Malaysia. From the oldest tropical rainforests around, vast quiet beaches, clear blue waters, colorful flora and fauna, from coast to mountain tops, we warmly invite you to explore our diverse backyard. Be eager to try tasty ethnic cuisine, shop for the latest products, bargain for unique handicrafts, or simply marvel at the skyline. Malaysia is also for you. The diversity of our people and genuine friendliness have also attracted visitors from all around the world previously. Visitors can relax and enjoy all these on their Malaysian holiday with the greatest peace of mind, as we have also implemented International Standard Operating Procedures or SOPs post-COVID-19, as your safety and health is our top priority. We look forward to saying Selamat Datang once again, as we have missed you. See you in Malaysia.
Oh, we'll hear a bit more about Malaysia in our panel discussion. So, we've had a great overview, but before we get to our panel discussion, I would like to now introduce the next session. Sorry, let me share my screen. And for our next session, for the next part of this webinar, we'll have here insights on Malaysia from Mastercard. And with that, please welcome the principal at Mastercard, Mr. Andreas Speicher.
Thank you, Paul. Great to be here. Let me share my screen because I think that's what I have to do, right?
Yep.
Technology, as always. Here we are. Thank you very much. I will use the next 10 minutes to give you a little bit of insights, what we see is happening on the recovery, and as well also bring you a little bit of what we have seen happening in other parts of the world, which have started the recovery far earlier than what we have seen here in Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is about 14 months behind what we would say the European and the US leading of the travel recovery space. The US market opened more or less February 2021, with the spring breaks coming very strong through. The European market, after coming out of a lockdown period last April, May, really started to rebound very strong in June. With that, we obviously took a lot of the insights of what we see with our cardholders, what they do, where they go, to start to craft a narrative, what's happening around the world. And we see this going to be replicated in Asia Pacific in a very similar way. So we know already quite well what's going to be 2022 looking like and what we need to expect for 2023, as we can learn very fast what's happening out of the other parts of the world. With that, I want to basically look at 5 key trends that we talk about here, and I will show you afterwards some points around this. So as we said, travel is returning. And we've seen these beautiful videos and we all want to travel because obviously many of us have been very much locked down or locked away from our families and relatives, or locked away from being able to follow our dreams that we had a long list of places to go to. A result out of the pandemic, which is undeniable, is a huge amount of savings which have been basically pent up, have been piled up on savings accounts, but not with every segment. Let's be very cognizant of that. Not the entire world is actually sitting on a lot of savings. As our dear minister has just mentioned, there's a lot of people which lost jobs, other people which were struggling during the pandemic. So it has an unbalanced effect on who is going to be able to travel first and how much are they willing to spend. But we do see out of that pent up saving, 2 very fundamental trends coming about. There is a segment which at the moment is going to go for revenge spend for their first and second trip. We saw that in the US, saw that in Europe. We're going to see the same thing happening in Asia Pacific. That means they're also going to be a bit less price sensitive. And that is very important at this very moment, because we're having 2 headwinds that we have to fight with at the moment when it comes down to pricing in travel. And that is especially going to be difficult for those markets which already have very high labor costs or high property costs, which again will lead to the fact that travel becomes even more expensive. Maybe less for Malaysia or Southeast Asia, but definitely for the more developed, in that sense, European markets, which had a very high labor cost. What we're seeing is a very strong and steep increase on inflation, which is diminishing the amount of personal consumption expenditure, which could be allocated for travel, which is also diminishing to some extent how much money is available for travel if you want to splurge. The second thing, which is also now hitting very hard, is the increase on oil price. That makes travel very expensive because airplanes still need fuel, and hence that fuel cost is going to hit the ticketing price. And that will have a huge impact, especially on the long haul traveler, where the airlines need to be able to bring up these aircrafts to 30,000, 39,000 feet, and then basically fly for 12 to 13 hours and bring our tourists over to this part of the world. So without that price point, it's going to have an unbalanced recovery, even if there's a lot of money around. Let's talk about travel demand. I'm going to show you afterwards a slide, but also look at the side. As I said, the travel recovery is going to be unbalanced. The demand is huge. People want to travel, but not everybody can afford to travel. So we're going to look a little bit at what that sentiment looks like and where these travels are going to come from. As we mentioned, and the third point is around supply chains. And I don't want to talk here about the supply chain problem that we had regarding our goods being shipped from different parts of the world, which we couldn't get in our shops. But we're talking here about supply chain problems on the air side, not on the hotel necessarily. A lot of the smaller operators are really fast on reopening their properties, but it's the air side, which is going to be super constraining the recovery for Asia Pacific. And why? The long-haul carriers are very much depending on the corporate travel in the front of the cabin, which is able to pay the higher fare prices, which are needed to pay for the cost of the flight. If you don't have those customers flying in the front of the cabin, you either need to raise your prices or you need to reduce your frequencies or your network that you're going to fly to until you have that demand coming back from the corporate and business side. And that's going to be something which is going to hinder the recovery in Asia Pacific over the next 6 to 9 months until the airlines are able to bring back the capacity. So if I live here in Singapore, in the old days, I could have had more than 52 flights on the Star Alliance network to go visit my mother in Switzerland. Today we are at 7. Until that gets back up to 52 flights, it's going to take 6 to 9 months. And that is extremely important to understand that with that supply side crunch, we're going to be looking at a travel recovery, which is far more driven by regional carriers with smaller aircrafts, and especially also with our friends from the low-cost carrier networks, which are able to connect point to point. So if you're banking on at this very moment on having a lot of international travelers coming through, there are simply not going to be enough seats available on those aircrafts to bring these travelers through all the way to your locations. And we'll see that in a chart later down the road as well. We talked about the shift to digital. We talked about the shift that a lot of new consumers have come to the digital space, which before were never in the digital space because they didn't need to go buy groceries or anything online. That means the pie has become larger. This is super important because on the one hand side, you're going to be able to address this consumer base with your digital campaigns in a far better way. But they're also be more savvy on pre-organizing their trips and finding the different locations, what to do and where to do. And they're booking a lot more in advance right now because they are aware that inventory or tickets to events or locations are scarce. Hence, if you're not online with your activities, you're not online with your services, you need to get yourself online because that's where you're going to have the next set of consumers come through. And who are the next set of consumers? They are not just the present consumers that we all know from pre-COVID, they're the next generation of young consumers, and it's a digital native society. I don't want to talk about the last part about global risk. We're all aware of what's happening in Europe and other parts of the world, but definitely they have a huge impact for Southeast Asia. China is still closed. The borders will remain fairly closed for the rest of this year. So a large part of our customers coming out of China are not going to come that fast. The second largest inbound market into Southeast Asia, Russia, is definitely not coming for the near future either. So again, these have huge impacts on who are your customer base, where are they coming from, and how do you substitute and replace these missing volumes? So let's look at some of these data charts I want to share with you. We open the borders in Malaysia and look at the consumer sentiment for going after searches, where to go and what to do in Malaysia. You could start to see already here, pre-announcement of the 1st of April, how significantly the searches picked up. Now, where do we have this data from? Mastercard works together with Mabrian, our partner, and bringing tourism insights together. And Mabrian does not only look at the spend data that we have at Mastercard, they also look at social insights coming from the social medias and from the digital platforms and what the consumer sentiment is. So they provided me with this piece of information. You could really see the moment we started to talk about Malaysia opening up, the interest is here. That is great. There's not just hope out there, there's real interest, there's demand out there. If we then look into what happened actually pre-opening, I looked at the spend pay data out of Malaysia. Malaysians, and the minister talked about that, consumers are looking at domestic destinations and seeing what they could do. Look at, for instance, the Christmas bump that we see on the left side, the very strong Christmas spend coming in. And basically, you see there that dominantly the airline business was suffering still over Christmas because people were being road warriors. They were going to new destinations, using their cars and visiting those destinations that the minister was speaking about, going basically and discovering new things to do in Malaysia. So the hotel spend, the travel agent spend is huge. Now, again, I mentioned before, people have joined the digital space, and you see these digital travel agencies, how they have really picked up here again, and how they're picking up now as the international borders start to open up the same way. Now, here we're seeing the pickup coming through on the international side as we have started to see borders opening up around the world and the end of Q1 of 2022. Now you see the airline business significantly picking up. If you look at the average transaction size, you start also seeing what I mentioned about the increased costs coming through, and hence only a certain amount of consumers will be able to pay for some of these trips, especially on the air side, has really significantly picked up already as of the crisis we've seen in Europe coming through in March. Ticket prices have just been skyrocketing and going through the roof, not because just the front of the cabin is missing, because fundamentally every flight costs a lot more to operate right now. Now, hotels have not increased their prices. They're still out there running their ordinary prices. It's a very good sign. Why are the travel agents picking up? Because these online travel agents sell both air and hotel, and what you see here is a blend. We have a lot more insights at Mastercard. I don't want to bore you with more of these, but this is interesting to see how the market is really strongly showing the first signs of recovery. Now we look at air capacity. I looked at the point direct flights into Malaysia, and again with our partner Maybury, and we looked at where these core destinations are coming from. The largest feeder market in the past has always been India already as one of the largest nearby neighboring countries. But you can see already today, India is dramatically well picking up in terms of volume, but still far behind pre-COVID levels. Australia is also starting to pick up, but very far behind. Japan, the same story. China is coming in at a very lower stage, but really, really low in terms of the overall volume versus pre-COVID. Again, that's also restricted to the air capacity coming out of China and the landing rights. Korea is still closed. Japan is still closed. United Kingdom is not as bad, but also at a lower flight capacity, which they used to bring into KL. And New Zealand is almost a steady state, but they were always running with a very limited amount of capacity. If we look forward into what's looking, you can see that we're still far away of flight capacity versus pre-COVID. But 2022 is looking already very good as forward capacity for the next quarter and going into Q3, especially going into Q3. The minister was mentioning there are new airlines flying into Malaysia, and you can see this capacity strongly coming through. While April is still fairly weak, we're almost looking at the 2x towards August, and that is a good sign. That means the country has now about 3 to 4 months time to ramp up all those small, medium businesses that sort of went out of business and need to put their light bulbs back on, because tourism towards the end of the year is going to be very strong if this air capacity is really going to come. However, if you look at, how you're connecting to countries, there's still some countries not connecting to Malaysia. It's a 17%. It's basically 1 out of 6 countries at the moment is still not connected to Malaysia. And when you look at cities, it's one out of 3 at the moment is still not connected if you look at the 34%. So that means your marketing has to change, unfortunately, because you're not going to see the same consumers being able to come back because their originating locations are not serviced yet with air capacity. If we look at some of the key carriers or source markets, I just wanted to show you the last slide before I then wrap it up. It's really interesting to see that, their neighboring country, Malaysia, Singapore, they're very strong and they're very, core in terms of where the overall business is coming from. The rest of the markets are very far behind in terms of the development of the air capacity. Also on the international routes, it's strong to see that Singapore is the backup hub for any international tourists coming into Malaysia, because Singapore Airlines and its low-cost carrier Scoot are very well geared up with their capacity. They went ahead of the curve in Southeast Asia to build that up. So if you don't have the direct flights coming into KL from the international side, which are at the moment still missing, as long many of the larger carriers are still not building up their capacity, you do have your friendly neighbor next door helping you bring in those customers. Bangkok used to be a very strong hub as well, but Thai Airways has fundamentally reduced the overall capacity of the international network. So then again, that is not going to help you in the short term. Hong Kong, the same thing. Cathay Pacific has very much dropped down in terms of the capacity there at the moment, still in lockdown. And all the other major hubs around Southeast Asia bringing you capacity as long haul are not yet well connected. If you look at the long-haul carriers, which do bring you very strong traffic, besides Singapore Airlines with its affiliate Scoot, it is the Middle Eastern carriers which have dominantly kept their capacity, and they might actually even extend it as now the other airlines are not yet there, so that they can connect you, the international traveler, into Malaysia. Now, to sum up, obviously, we all shifted our behaviors out of COVID, and then that shift is here to stay. And what are these shifts which are really here to stay? And the minister mentioned this very nicely. People changed their lifestyles fundamentally. From a betterment boom about eating better, sleeping more, moving, doing outdoor activities, that has stayed here. And how do we know this? We have seen specific categories where the spend started to develop during the lockdown periods, and these spend categories are still consistently seeing a lot of transactions and volumes coming through. So it wasn't just a short-term shift while every country was locked down. People have fundamentally shifted some of their ways that they want to seriously manage their life. And eating well, sleeping well, and moving and doing outdoor activities are very important. And your country is very well geared to serve these needs. The next thing which has changed, and that is also a new way of working, is the work-life playbook. Everything has blended together between homeschooling, working the different hours from home, working from new location. Leisure used to be the term. We're talking more today about workation, blending work with vacation together. And again, your country has many beautiful locations that can actually provide both the opportunity to enjoy the countryside and enjoy the country and its activities, as well as also work from there. And you're going to see a lot more of these consumers come through, spend 2 to 3 weeks in Malaysia before they move on. I mentioned the shift to online. Nothing very new here. A lot of new segments have gone online, but I want to mention something on online which is super important. While we saw the sales of goods going up during the pandemic and the sales of services obviously going down, and that was a constant trend which never actually happened. In the past, it was always services started to grow faster than goods. The trend now, as of the Europeans and Americans coming out of the pandemic, has shifted back towards services. So what do we mean by that? We're seeing that retail, therapy, and travel is not really pulling through that much. So the classical tourist that went into locations to go to do shopping is at the moment not coming back. The people have bought their goods that they need. They want to go out and they want to experience things. They want to go out and have the real life. So they're spending their money online of booking these experiences to go actually to sit in front of a chef and see how he cooks, or go and try that food, or have a tour guide bring them to a location which is unique. So if you're banking on bringing in a lot of high spending retail tourists, be aware that they have actually got all their goods at home, and it's going to take another 12 to 18 months until they come into a repurchase cycle. A lot of tourists have become super savvy on pre-planning their trips. They wanted to make sure that they have all the tickets ready and all the activities ready, so that they are not going to fear of missing out if they're in a location that they cannot do what they want. So again, I mentioned it before, you gotta be accessible online to be able to book these tickets and these slots. If not, the tourists will go where they can book. What does this mean for travel? As I mentioned, long haul is going to be an issue. Your next door neighboring countries are going to be your friends for the next 6 months until really the long haul capacity comes back up. Business is still going to lag behind as the larger corporates are not traveling that much, but the SMEs are, but they're sitting in the back of the cabin and they're more price sensitive. Don't underestimate the power of your SME visitors on the business side, because they're crucial for your overall tourism as well as your industry. I mentioned about the fact that the travel recovery is going to be unbalanced, because again, there are segments out there which are sitting on excess savings, but there are also segments out there which are not. They're going to be super price sensitive. The segments which are super price sensitive are going to be your road warriors. They're going to go by car because airfares are just simply going to be super expensive. There are going to be segments which will do some revenge spend. And then we're going to see this very true in Europe and the USA. We saw a lot coming through in the first and second trip, but it falls back as of the third trip. Now, attractiveness of your destination is going to be key. The experience is key. Being there is key. It's not about virtual. I don't personally think metaverse is going to be a replacement for travel. People want to experience. They want to jump into that water. They want to snorkel there. They want to meet the orangutans. They want to be able to be in the rainforest. They want to see the big skyline of the city. They don't want to necessarily go to places to do the bucket list of the past. To see your northern lights, that is something for metaverse. To be able to see the Eiffel Tower at night, that's something for the metaverse. But fundamentally, the true change in travel is going to come from experiences. And your country is beautifully geared to provide these experiences with the people and the dedication to actually deliver those unique experiences that consumers will go home, tell their friends about, and come back. With that, Paul, back to you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. A very thorough presentation. And for anyone who may be asking, yes, this presentation will be available. So you can send me an email, but we'll be sending it out to everyone after today's webinar. So thank you very much, Andreas, and thank you all of our friends at Mastercard for sponsoring today's session. Now we'll move on to our next session, where we get a little bit deep. We heard from the minister. Now we're going to get a little bit deeper into what's going on in Malaysia. And so with that, let's please welcome back the senior journalist at BBC Global News, Nick Marsh. Nick, over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Andreas, as well. Some really interesting insights there. I'll be putting a few of those things to our panel. We've got a really good panel joining us today as well. I'm really pleased to welcome Datu Haji Zainuddin Abdul Wahab. He is the Director General for Tourism Malaysia. We also have Norada Othman. She is the CEO for the Sabah Tourism Board. And we also have Madam Shahzad Datu Haji Saleh Asghar, and she is the CEO for the Sarawak Tourism Board. Thank you for joining us all. So I will probably start with you, Director General, seeing as it's been such a, I'm guessing, busy and bright couple of weeks. I just wanted to ask you, I mean, in terms of the mood where you are in your office, how has it compared these last 2 weeks to, say, I don't know, this time a year ago?
Of course, Nick, thank you very much. As compared with 2 years ago, last 2 years is after the announcement of border opening by Honorable Prime Minister. That's a lot of activity that's been done by us in Tourism Malaysia as compared with before. In fact, since the announcement, or since the preparation of the border opening, that Tourism Malaysia has planned more than 100 promotional activities to boost inbound tourism. Some, of course, which has been taken prior to the opening. We are also, through our overseas office and marketing rep, will continue work with local travel partners and media for the respective market to our strategy as smart partnerships, networking session, our joint promotion, seminars and webinar, and of course our traditional activities, preparation trips. Actually, we have kicked off our promotional program, and we participate in travel fairs in ASEAN market, especially in Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and Brunei. In coming months, to promote enhance our regional travel, as we mentioned by our colleague from the Mastercard just now. Brunei, of course, we will not be neglected, and we will be there once their border is open. Similarly, but we are also organizing a tourism business roadshow in Middle East, Europe, North Asia, and South Asia to attract spectrum of travelers during the business and medical tourism segment. Recently, that last 30th, on the 30th of March, we have launched our Tourism Malaysia Strategy and Marketing Plan 2022-2026, which was shared with the industry players on our new strategies and approaches to face upcoming challenges, which we are focusing on number one, domestic tourism promotion, international tourism recovery, digital adaptation, innovation, and health and safety. Of course, the priority will be given to creative and digital marketing, enhancing sleek promotion, shifting to emotional and sentiment-based promotion, moving to customers market, and structuring our brand Malaysia to Asia.
Yeah, so still plenty of work to do, I'm sure. I just thought at this stage I would just mention, feel free for anyone viewing to pop a question into the Q&A box. I'll take a look at them and see if I can put any of these questions to our panelists as well. I won't have a chance to put all of them to our panelists, but if you pop it in, I'll see what I can do. Nada Othman, I just wanted to bring you in here. I mean, how much have you been looking forward to this month, and how has it been for you in Sabah for the last couple of weeks as well?
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. Well, to answer your question, we have been very excited, looking forward to the reopening of the border. And when the day came, of course, everyone is excited. Everyone in the industry are very much welcome the reopening of the borders, especially when Sabah as a destination, we depend a lot on air connectivity, especially. So in the past, over 90% of our arrivals have been through air connectivity. So reopening of borders, it's certainly a welcome thought, and everyone's excited. Although we do accept that there wouldn't be droves of tourists coming to our show immediately, but just the thought that we are ready and we are welcoming our guests, and also the resuming of other airlines or other air connectivity coming in. We were very happy to welcome Singapore flight over the weekend. So yeah, and lots of pomp and ceremony to receive everyone back to Sabah. So yeah, excited, and we very much welcome it. Yeah, it's a long wait.
It really has been, hasn't it? Yeah, I think we can all identify with that. Madam Shahzad, you're on Sarawak. Is it a similar picture there? How much did you rely on international connectivity before the pandemic?
Thank you very much, Nick, for that question. I think like Sabah, we're located in an island, yeah, and therefore, air connectivity is one of the main connectivity to bring people to the island. And the same goes for Sarawak, yeah. Basically, with Sarawak, we depend highly on our air connectivity. And like Norida mentioned just now, we were very excited, and we welcome our first international group coming from Singapore. After 2.5 years, it is definitely something where everybody got excited. We've been welcoming, passengers coming from Singapore, and more airlines are coming in. We've just got news that Brunei will be opening and flying into Kuching, just around the corner. So yes, we're definitely very excited. We have more things that we're organizing and planning now, or with the borders opening, in terms of events, which is not now going to be physical, not just online, like you say, like we say, it's never the same when it comes to having concert online versus physical, yeah. So that's going to be, you will see 3 international events that will be organized in Kuching. Just for bringing in international participants and visitors to the state of Sarawak.
Tell us a bit more about those events.
Well, the first one will be Spartan. For those who are familiar with Spartan, this is really about endurance, and that's going to be 11th to the 12th of June. A week after that will be our iconic Rainforest World Music Festival, which is renowned worldwide, and that's going to be 17th to the 19th of June. Then a week later after that, we will be having Borneo Jazz Festival, which is up north at the Northern Gateway. So 3 international events. We're expecting quite a fair bit of visitors coming here to Sarawak. We've got a lot of interest. We've just started our early bird ticket sales on today, so, for those who are really into, this is the first international, especially in Malaysia, international concert that's being organized physically, so we're going to have that, but it's also going to be online too. So it's a hybrid event.
Wow, okay.
Excited. Yeah, I hope you can come here too.
I do as well. Yeah, it sounds brilliant. Director General, I'm going to come to you just in a second to talk a little bit about COVID protocols and you know the things that people still do have to do in order to come to Malaysia. But I've just had a question here from Sophie Felton. I don't know where she's based, but she's asked in terms of travel between the two states, between Sarawak and Sabah, if you're in Borneo, how easy is it to move from state to state?
I don't think so that is much restriction now. I think Sabah and Sarawak is already eased the entrance, and either you enter through Sabah or through Sarawak. This is not much different. So
okay.
Not different.
So it's a fluid, quite easy,
yes.
Easy to get once you're in. Okay, and just tell me a little bit now about what you have to do as a traveller coming to Malaysia, because there's still testing requirements, isn't there? There's still an app for contact tracing. You need to upload documents. Is there a lot of things that people need to sort of take care of in terms of the paperwork before they set off?
In fact, according to the SOPs required by the Ministry of Health, that of course you have to do a test before you come, 24 hours before you depart, and then and also we advise you to tourists to upload the MySejahtera for us to track, and then once they arrive, they have the option whether they want to have a swab test immediately, the RTK test, or they have the option of within 24 hours to have the test, and then they are free to go. You can have it either at the hotel or at the airport. This is an option for the tourists. In fact, this is much easier, and I don't that will be a burden to the tourists when they arrive.
And how long do you envisage these measures being in place for? I know you can't put a date on it, but is there a plan to eventually phase them out one day?
Of course, in terms of that Ministry of Health, we closely monitor, and I believe that with the current situation now, the less, in fact, there is no report of the cases among the tourists. So I believe that the procedure that's currently practiced now will be much easier very soon. So we hope that it will be announced later.
Okay. No, that in your experience, how much of a barrier have the testing requirements, the administrative side of things been? Has that been putting people off, or is that just a fact of life at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of understanding the SOP and all that. And for Sabah, we've received, I'm glad to say, we have received a group from the UK and Australia last week, and it was very smooth. As long as they know what they need to do before that, and as they arrive in Kuala Lumpur, they had their testing before they actually took the transit flight into Kota Kinabalu. But at the same time, if you are flying direct international, it's just like it's just like Kuala Lumpur. You can arrive and you can take your test within 24 hours upon arrival. Yeah, so so far it has been fluid. From Singapore, there were no testing at the airport. So yeah, everyone's happy. It was very quick, smooth.
Okay, Madam Shahzad, has that been the same experience for you?
Yeah, it is. It has been, like our Dato DG had mentioned just now, the Director General had said, it has simplified things, Therefore, I feel that coming to Sarawak, as long as you know what the standard operating procedure, which is not going to be very difficult, you just have to apply it, and there's no quarantine unless you are found positive. Other than that, it's very smooth. For us, it has been very smooth also.
Well, you raised a very interesting point there. I was just about to ask, what does happen if you test positive? That must be in a lot of travelers' minds.
Well, basically, from our end, if you're found, you have to be quarantined. So if you don't have if you need to be stationed in a center, and obviously you must make sure you have your insurance. Yeah, that is one of the requirements which you have to have, which is a minimum coverage of 20,000 USD before you fly in anyway. So that shouldn't be any issues in terms of being covered if you found positive.
Sure. And how long is the quarantine and where is it? Did you say it was in a facility?
I think it's in a facility, and also depending where if you're a Malaysian coming from overseas, it could be home quarantine and all that.
Okay. So I've just got so Sophie's popped up again on the chat, and she said if you test somewhere remote, like in a Borneo Rainforest Lodge or somewhere where there might not be any facilities nearby, what's the protocol there? I suppose anyone can take this question if you feel like, but what happens for a traveler who gets that positive result?
I think, Nick, you will probably be tested positive, or in the event that you're not feeling well, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're in the jungle and you don't feel well and you go for a test, or you go and see a doctor, and it so happened that you are tested positive, yeah. And every district have their own protocol, which is simplified. There's no longer a quarantine center in smaller districts. So they will probably, depending on where you're staying, as long as what category of positive you are. Because after getting vaccinated and all that, largely everyone has been under category 1 or 2, very mild symptoms. So depending on what happens, depending on where you are. If you're in a very remote area, you'll probably be best to stay put. That's it. Right. Yeah. Or if you need medical attention, then go to the nearest hospital or clinic. Yeah.
I see. So it's more of a kind of a personal responsibility that you're taking. I see. Okay.
But, just to add on, Nick, I think the most important thing is that our tour operators, our ground handlers, are able to manage the situation, and which I think most of our operators here are well versed. It just happens, even pre-pandemic, if someone gets sick, they know what to do. Yeah.
Sure, but it's not a forced quarantine.
No. Yeah.
Okay. That's the really important point.
I think basically, Nick, I just want to add on that. I think in Malaysia, there's only, we have the what they call category 1 and category 2, and that is, like you say, it is self-responsibility. You feel that you're not that well, try to how do I say, do a home, and distance yourself from others, so be responsible in that sense. So I think, so in Malaysia, the hospitals, the clinics are are very accessible, unless you are at a very, very remote area. Even then, you may have a rural clinic or something like that.
Great, thank you. That's a really good practical point to clear up, isn't it? Director General, I just wanted to ask you about something which was touched on a little bit there by Andreas, the rising cost of living, the rising cost of fuels, the inflationary pressures that we're finding just on a global scale at the moment. How is the industry poised to tackle that challenge? It's not a challenge that's unique to Malaysia, it's all around the world. How is the industry going to try and combat this?
The issue of rising of costs, especially post-pandemic, that will happen not only here in Malaysia, but also in other parts, due to the fuel prices. So in terms of for the industry player, they are already, after experiencing 2 years without any income or any tourists coming in, they are already prepared, and most of the industry players already minimize their costs, and they know where to save and how to cover whichever area that they need to, and for sure that there is no incremental rise of the cost when you come into Malaysia for the tourism. And hotel, as far as we are from the report that we have, they're still maintaining the prices that you enjoyed in 2019, except for some of them will be a slightly increase due to the upgrading of the facilities and so forth.
And General, just while we're on the subject, has it been a challenge to scale back up again after so many job losses, after the industry is essentially internationally at least going down to zero, getting back to that level of volume? Is it a slowly but surely kind of plan? How are you planning to get back to those pre-pandemic levels?
Okay. Well, of course, after during the 2 years period, there's a loss. Many of the industry players, especially in tourism, lost their job due to the closure of the hotel or tour operator and so on. But for the Ministry of Tourism, MOTEC, and Tourism Malaysia, we continue working together with all industry players by subsidizing, or even there is, as mentioned by my ministers earlier, that also a special grant allocated for the hotelier, for the industry player, for the tour guide, tour operator, and hotel to ease on subsidizing their operation. And for the individual operator, like a tour guide, that is allocation fund is allocated for them to help them during the bad time. And now with the opening of the border, and especially this is the third stage of our tourism. We start with opening the domestic tourism, where it's first stage when the people are allowed to travel within the country freely without any restriction, and followed by when we introduce our Langkawi International Bubble, and our VTL, vaccinated traveling. This is progressing that open the opportunity for the industry player to start and adapt with the new norm on new practice. So I believe that again we're taking care of the all industry player, most of industry player, and then they will be ready to come back for the gradually according to the demands of the tourists who are coming back to Malaysia.
Yeah, it's like an incremental scaling up then. Norida, I just wanted to turn to you and change subject slightly there. I mean, I'm very curious to know how dependent you were before the pandemic on visitors from China, because obviously at the moment, if you live in China, you're really not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Is this a big problem, and is there a contingency in place for you?
Well, you're right there, Nick. Our largest target, or rather focus market, was China before the pandemic, our largest arrival. And 2019 alone, we received about almost 600,000 Chinese visitors. And we had about 100 odd direct international flights from 12 to 13 cities out of China. So definitely it is a huge impact for us. And because you can see the large scale of it. And that is why with China still being closed, we're not looking at such numbers for visitors arrivals. The second market was Korea. We had about 400,000 that came from Korea. So like I said earlier on, the air connectivity is very important for us. We had about 236 direct international flights into Kota Kinabalu alone in 2019. So that really did bring numbers for us. However, with the markets are still closed, we are still looking at regional domestic tourism is also very important for us, and perhaps long haul. Although the challenge is air connectivity, is a long way for them, so we will not see the numbers. We know that. We do accept that, but we are optimistic. Yeah, there are other markets that we are looking at, although it will not be a quick win like China was. We hope Korea will help us in some ways. We are looking at a few direct flights out of Korea as early as May. And we've been working with the airlines even during the past 24 months. I don't know whether you have heard about the flight to nowhere, which Jin Air, Jeju Air, as well as Air Busan did in Korea. And they flew to Kota Kinabalu. In their minds, they actually, the Koreans actually got onto the plane and flew within Korean airspace and pretending that they're coming to Kota Kinabalu.
Yeah.
So these were just some of the effort that we tried to retain, to be top of the mind for the Koreans. So we hope they will come back.
I did see that. Yeah, I think SIA did a similar thing a few months back as well.
Yes.
Yeah, there's definitely a strong desire to travel, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Shahzad, I just wanted to ask you the same question, really. I mean, is this a big challenge for you, China's borders being shut so firmly? What kind of alternative markets are you looking at?
Okay, for us, Nick, we're a little bit different than Sabah. Yeah, basically, during our peak time in 2019, pre-pandemic, we received 4.66 million visitors. Yeah, out of that 4.66 million, about slightly over 50%, or near 51% or so, are domestic market. Okay? And the rest are international, visitors. So in that sense, our focus, will always still be domestic. Then it goes regional. Then we will target our traditional focus market, like the UK market, the Germans, and all that. Yeah. So basically, in that sense, since the pandemic, we have been very active, and create our homegrown brand, to ensure that our domestic market are here to come to Sarawak on vacation and all that. And it works very well. It was good for us. It has helped the industry because we created what we call Siasito. It's a homegrown brand where it's literally means here and there, for you to travel and to understand your own product in your own backyard. And that has helped. So, but, again, like I say, domestic is still our focus for the next year or so, but we are focusing on our long haul. We are still also focusing on our regional market. Yeah, so we do know that it takes a while. Just like Sabah, since the pandemic, we have been working very hard to get the airline to have direct flights to Sarawak. We will be seeing a few things and changing, as time goes along. And I think, there are new things that we have been promoting Sarawak. We are very proud. We have our new museum, which is the largest in Malaysia and the second largest museum in Southeast Asia. And for just opening I think about a month now, we have received over 62,000 visitors. So may it be domestic, and also we're very excited, Of course, it took us 2.5 years also to ensure that we look into our community-based tourism, rural tourism, that will help the community and empower the community more than anything else. Yeah, so we're also working very hard to get more direct flights, but on our part, compared to what we used to be, is about 70% recovery on the connectivity to what it used to be, because ours are very much local for now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is this a conscious model, or is this just the way things have evolved, where in Sarawak it's more a domestic tourism focus and in Sabah it's more international? You work in tandem. How has that evolved for you?
Well, for us, we feel that the international market is a very important market. Yeah, but we had issues with airlines connectivity, and I think during this pandemic, we hope to see more direct flights to Sarawak. and I think it's always good. I look forward to work with Noreda in actual fact, where we promote two cities, yeah, one in Sarawak and one in Sabah, when you have a direct flight here. So I think it's a win-win situation for those who are staying in Borneo. And we are the third largest island in the world, and there's a lot of green lungs that you can enjoy. And I believe the slow tourism, and you need to immerse yourself. It's the way forward, like Andres mentioned. So I think Sarawak has a lot to offer. Because that's the new style. That's a new way of style that a lot of travelers want. And for a big state, we are the biggest state in Malaysia. We have only 2.8 million population. So it's low, it's green lungs, it has a lot of nature, and and our 5 pillars of culture, adventure, nature, food, and festival will still be relevant, even more relevant than anything else now.
I think you've sold it well. I was going to ask if there was a friendly rivalry between the two states, but it sounds like it's
no. We are good. We are good. Gigi,
the word is friendly.
Yeah, the word is friendly.
Exactly.
You need to be. Yeah.
We always call ourselves sister states.
There you go. Yeah. Well, if one's doing well, then the other's doing well. Yeah. It's like living in Singapore and the friendly rivalry between Singapore and Malaysia as well.
But Nick, I would also just like to add on that domestic is also very important for Sabah because in the past 60% of our arrivals is domestic. Despite the big number of international arrivals, but domestic has always been our backbone, and I think during the pandemic just shows how important it is for us to keep domestic and to push domestic travel within within Malaysia.
Absolutely. Director General, I just wanted to come back to you. What challenges do you think you're going to be facing? I mean, in particular, what kind of relationship do you have at the moment with all of the various stakeholders in the industry who have had a difficult time? Is it everyone pulling in the same direction, or are there moments of friction where people want things to open up a bit quicker than they are now? Or does everyone just realize that this is the plan and we're going to stick with it?
Okay, before that, I want to back to the discussing about the domestic just now. For the tourism industry in Malaysia, the domestics, as we also be mentioned by Honorable Mr. just now, generally 60% of our hotel occupancy is by domestic. So in fact, when we start allowing our domestic movement, that is you can see that the huge movement of domestic tourism is happening. So back to your question just now, we're talking about the challenges that we are facing through. And of course, we will talk about that earlier, at human capital, that we have lost many of the passionate and skilled workforce during the pandemic. Either they are opting to the new job, or they are already less confidence about the tourism industry because the pandemic is happening quite long time. It's 2 years. Is a big bitter experience for them. However, those who are experienced industry, we also try persuading those people to coming back through the roadshow and also the retraining and giving back the opportunity for them to try their position and the post that they have been before. And another challenge that we are facing is the readiness of the industry player is overall, okay, to receive the tourists under the new norm. And we are also aware of the COVID-19. The virus is stay for quite some time, and development remains uncertain. And we are concerned about the possible new variants coming ahead. And to combat this, for us in Malaysia, we are gearing up to vaccinate the children as now they are the most vulnerable and the easier affected because they are the last group of the people in Malaysia vaccinated. And in terms of the advantage that we have, as we know that Malaysia is very unique. Malaysia, truly Asia, home of biodiversity. We have multi-ethnic, multicultural society, and also we have also a blend with beautiful traditional heritage and gastronomy. And again, our strength is we have a strong domestic market, and domestic will be the drive the industry towards recovery, and there's a pent-up demand by the local. On the ecotourism, our weather and our geography allow us to bless with 1,000 flora fauna species of the beaten track destination, and also there's a slope of destination and ecotourism destination that need to be explored. And on other hand, when we talk about safety, Malaysia is among the fastest vaccination rollouts. Currently, we almost 100%. We are already 98%, 97% of that population has received at least 2 doses of vaccination, and we are seriously enrolling of the booster to the people and the population.
I see. Okay. I'm going to wrap things up fairly soon because I don't want to go too over time. I wanted to ask you just one additional question, touching on what you've just mentioned. Now, the fact of the matter is that you are having to try and stand out in a very crowded, attractive field for tourists. You have Thailand, you have Philippines, you have Indonesia, you have all these wonderful places to visit as a person who might not live in the region, let's say. What kinds of things are you doing to try and stand out?
Of course, in terms of when we're talking about, we are aware of our neighboring country, Indonesia, Thailand, and of course the coming ones, Brunei. Singapore is different, offering different product, and our priorities in promotion is to really enhance our sustainable and responsible tourism in all our promotion, and we will continue promoting Malaysia as top of mind eco-tourism destination of the world. And we will ensure that travelers worldwide, we know that they are seeking of sustainable elements of their traveling experience, including of contributing to the local communities. So this community-based tourism will be also part of our strategy, and we also will continue showcasing our truly Malaysia, truly Asian experience. That's not only through our breathtaking destination, but also through our endless choice of local cuisine, our gastronomy, and our diversity of our natural wonders, which are offered by our colleague in Sabah and Sarawak, especially. They have a lot of natural wonders that need to be explored.
Yeah, I can personally vouch for that. Okay, so why don't we go around the panel and let's try and sum up in a sentence or two why people should come to Malaysia. Norida, let's start with you. No pressure.
Diversity. I think we are very diverse in terms of people, in terms of tourism product offerings, and I believe the diversity that you get, it's truly value for money for any travelers. And if truly Asia says it up, we're it. So I think living in harmonious states and in Malaysia, it's and everyone speaks English. So yeah, diversity, Nick, diversity.
Great,
yeah.
Great. Madam Shahzad.
I would add, with diversity, we also, I think Malaysia has this authenticity still remain. We may be modern, yet you have this authenticity all around. You can see every state, will have this authentic culture, the kind of food you'll never get anywhere else. So without a doubt, with diversity, with authenticity, with the charm that we have in each and every one of our states, it does gives you a different experience, I know, when you do come to Malaysia.
Thank you very much. Director General, sir, do you have anything to add?
Okay, for me, it's visiting Malaysia is really like you are visiting Asia. You can experience China in Malaysia. You can experience Indian culture in Malaysia. You can experience continental experience in Malaysia. We offer a lot. You want to have everything here in Malaysia. You have Japanese food, you have Korean food, you have Indonesian food, and you have Western food. And we are living in harmony despite of our different races and different belief or religions. So you will see that the truly experience of harmony in living in different culture and society. You can see in Malaysia. And similarly, at the same time, you want to experience the modern city. We have the modern city. You want to experience in the urban, in the rural area. You have it. We have it here in Malaysia through our homestay program and so forth. And if you want to experience the real ecotourism jungle area, we also have in our national parks. So a lot of reason, which if I can't stop of talking about why you should come to Malaysia. Including you, Nick.
I know. Well, I feel lucky to be just across the border, to be honest with you. I've been so near yet so far for the last 2.5 years.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm very excited to personally be able to come over to Borneo and also to the rest of Malaysia as well. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's a really exciting time to talk to you. It's nice to be talking positively about these things for once, isn't it?
Yep.
Everyone on the Q&A, if I didn't manage to get around to your question, I'm really sorry. Hopefully Paul or someone else can get your questions and maybe get an answer to you, but we're running out of time at the moment. So I'm just going to hand it back to Paul and thank our panelists once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Great job moderating that panel. And thank you, Director General Dato' Zarnuddin. Thank you, Norda. And thank you, Madam Sharzad, for joining us this afternoon. It's great really to hear the positivity and the excitement that's coming out of Malaysia. I've been to both Sarawak and Sabah. I've been to KL. So look, I do look forward to coming back and enjoying the great food, the great culture, but most importantly, the people there. It's, Malaysians are, most welcoming, hospitable and just loving. And so, yeah, I do miss that and very happy to hear, with the borders open. So thank you so much for spending this afternoon with us.
Thank you.
So we saw earlier, we saw a video from Tourism Malaysia. Before we end this, actually, I want to just give you some a taste of some of the other destinations that we were talked about here this afternoon. So we're going to get a quick video here from Sarawak. So without further ado, my colleague.
This is a new horizon. One we'd never imagined. In a land as old as time lies the ancient wisdom of mankind. We are all in search of something greater, to find meaning in the mysteries long forgotten. What if we went back to where it all began and reconnect with our origin? Now feel the rhythm of sarawak. awaken to newfound senses. May this life be a more immersive journey for as far as you wander. Your journey begins here.
Yes, I've been to Sarawak, a beautiful destination. I saw the video, I think won over somebody here in the comments. And as Madam Shahrazad said, you know, they do have a couple of international events coming up this year, so do check them out. She said that the early birds, these are early bird special for these events that you can take advantage of now. I'm sure you can just easily visit the Sarawak Tourism Board's website for more information about these events. So as my colleague just, I wonder if she's ready to queue up the next video. This is the second video from Sarawak. So is that's ready? Oh, here we go.
Sarawak, your journey begins here.
Well, we've seen Sarawak. Now we're going to turn attention now to Sabah and find out what Sabah has to offer. And I believe Norda actually has put an event that she has coming up here in the chat, the Second Asia Parks Congress, happening from the 24th to the 29th of May 2022 in Kota Kinabalu. So feel free to check out that event. I'm sure you can find information about that at the Sabah Tourism Board. So let's actually see what Sabah has to offer. And with that, watch the video. Well, that ends the session, and I hope you're now inspired to plan your next vacation or trip to Malaysia, truly Asia. So once again, let me just share my screen real quickly. Once again, thank you to the Honorable Minister, Tourism Minister Nancy Shukri, Dato Zainuddin, Norida Othman, Madam Sharzad, and of course our good friends at BBC and Nick Marsh, and as well as our great partner at Mastercard and Andreas Speicher. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us for today's webinar. And also thank you all for joining us for today's session. Now, if you enjoyed this webinar, just want to make you aware of our upcoming webinar. This is happening next week on the 27th. This is the part of our PATA Innovation Series. It's the hard reboot, how tech is enabling the travel recovery. So these are some of the speakers that we have lined up for next week. More speakers will be announced soon. So you can register now on our website at www.pata.org. I also want to make you aware of some of our upcoming events. Our first physical event in over 2 years is coming up in August from the 2nd to the 4th. This is happening in Songkhla, Thailand. It's actually just 40 minutes from the Malaysian border. So if you're in northern Malaysia, like Penang, you can easily join us there. Get in a car and drive over and join us for this event. This is an in-person event, so feel free to join now. Our registration is open. Just as said, you can go to our website and find out more information about the events. We also, of course, have our annual summits. That's happening October 25th to the 27th in Ras Al Khaimah. So registration is open now. Said you can, for more information about these events or webinars, feel free to email me. My email is right there on the screen, paul@pata.org. If you want to find out more information about any of these events or any of our activities, feel free to check out our website. And just a reminder, if you've only caught half of this and you want to watch the first half, this will be available on our YouTube channel. It's actually currently being streamed on our Facebook page. So after this is ended, you actually can go back and watch it. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, we'll be making that available for all of our participants. And said, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. So thank you so much once again to our speakers, to BBC Global News, to Mastercard, and to all of you for joining us for today's Destinations Insight series featuring Malaysia. Hope you guys plan to visit Malaysia for your next trip. Thank you, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.